Why people suddenly start hating you. The silent war you never see coming. As Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Sometimes, the hatred you receive has nothing to do with who you are, but everything to do with what you awaken in others. In this video, from Spiritual Wisdom, we explore why people suddenly turn against you, the hidden insecurities it exposes, and the silent spiritual battles most never see. These insights are not just knowledge, they're tools for growth, resilience, and clarity. Have you ever felt attacked for simply being yourself? Share your story in the comments below. We're here to grow through this together. 1. Your growth. Triggers, others' shadows. Your growth doesn't just change your life, it changes how others see themselves. As you begin to heal and rise, you become a mirror. Not one that flatters, but one that reveals. Without trying, you reflect back to others what they've hidden, denied, or avoided within themselves. And that reflection? It's often too raw, too painful, too threatening. So instead of facing their shadows, they project their discomfort onto you. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is the unconscious part of the psyche we try to suppress the fears, wounds, and insecurities we pretend aren't there. When someone hasn't done their inner work, seeing someone else evolve becomes unbearable. Your confidence reminds them of their self-doubt. Your peace stirs their unresolved chaos. Your authenticity disrupts their carefully curated mask. They begin to see you not as you are, but as the embodiment of everything they've buried. That's when the silent war begins. No direct conflict, no clear betrayal. Just a shift, a cold shoulder, a sharp tone, a sudden distance. You'll feel it before you understand it. Friends become distant. Co-workers seem colder. Loved ones act offended by your joy. It makes no sense on the surface, but beneath it all, your growth is triggering emotional landmines in others that they have no idea how to diffuse. This reaction is not about you. It's about what you represent. You symbolize what they haven't yet allowed themselves to become. And rather than rise with you, many would rather reject you. Because in their eyes, your light exposes their darkness. And when people don't want to deal with their darkness, they'll resent anyone who shines. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that people rarely hate what they truly understand. They hate what confuses them, threatens them, or forces them to confront their own truth. So when someone suddenly dislikes you for no reason, there is a reason, but it's buried in their own internal landscape. You just happen to be the trigger. Their criticism may be loud, but their pain is louder. They may mock your boundaries, but secretly wish they had the courage to set their own. They may gossip about your success, but deep down, they're mourning the version of themselves they abandoned. The discomfort you cause is often a call their soul hasn't yet answered. So don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't water yourself down for the sake of fitting in. You are not here to stay small, so others can avoid their own growth. The truth is, you may lose people along the way. But the ones who stay, those who celebrate your evolution, are the ones walking their own path of awakening. The rest? They were never aligned with your future in the first place. You're not being punished for growing. You're being shown who's willing to grow with you. And that is spiritual wisdom worth remembering. Have you ever noticed someone reacting strangely to your growth? If so, share your story in the comments. It might help someone else feel less alone. If you've experienced this, but don't know what to say, just comment, "I'm growing anyway," to affirm your journey. 2. Projection is why they turn against you. When you begin your spiritual awakening, something subtle but profound happens. You stop playing the roles that once made others feel comfortable. You no longer shrink yourself to fit their expectations. You stop saying yes when your soul means no. You begin to walk in truth, to protect your peace, and to honor the person you're becoming. And the moment you do that, a quiet resistance often begins to form around you. People you once called friends may grow distant. Family may start to criticize. And without warning, you may become the target of unexpected resentment. It's not that you've done something wrong. It's that your transformation threatens the illusion they've built their identity around. Carl Jung called this projection when someone unconsciously places their own unhealed wounds, fears, and insecurities onto someone else. When you were smaller, more silent, more agreeable, they could avoid their own reflection. But now, your light exposes their shadows. Your clarity unsettles their confusion. Your healing reveals their pain. And instead of facing it, they blame you. You are not hated because you've grown. You're hated because they haven't. Your evolution reminds them that they're stuck. Your strength challenges their fragility. Your boundaries feel like rejection, even when they're rooted in self-respect. People don't want to see their own limitations, so they attack the person who shows them what's possible. It's easier to label your confidence as arrogance than to admit they're insecure. It's easier to call your honesty rude than to sit with the discomfort of their own dishonesty. This is the silent war of awakening, the one you didn't expect, the one you never prepared for. You thought your growth would be met with support, with applause. But instead, it's met with suspicion, jealousy, and silence. That's because you've broken the contract, an invisible agreement that says, "Stay the same so I can feel safe." And the moment you rewrite that agreement, you disrupt the illusion. But make no mistake, this resistance is not a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation that you've outgrown a version of reality that no longer serves your soul. You're not responsible for the emotions people project onto your healing. You're only responsible for staying aligned with your truth. Not everyone has the courage to face themselves. Some would rather destroy the mirror than see what it reflects. And in this journey, you are the mirror. Let them misunderstand you. Let them gossip. Let them distance themselves. Because the deeper you go into your spiritual awakening, the more you'll attract those who are on the same path. Those who see your truth and don't fear it. You weren't meant to stay hidden just to keep others comfortable. You were meant to rise, to inspire, to lead by example. And sometimes that means walking alone for a while, not because you're unloved, but because your light is preparing the way for those who will truly see you. If you've ever felt punished for growing, comment below. I choose my healing over their projection. Let's walk this path of truth and transformation together. 3. The shadow self explains their reactions. Every person carries a shadow. Carl Jung described it as the hidden part of ourselves that contains everything we reject, suppress, or deny. It's not just our anger or jealousy. It's also our confidence, our power, and even our inner peace if we were taught to be small or invisible. These parts don't vanish. They get buried deep, waiting for the right person or moment to bring them to the surface. And often, that moment is when someone around us starts to heal. When you begin to embody wholeness, confidence, peace, healthy boundaries, you unknowingly trigger what others have buried. Your light makes their shadow visible. Your calm reveals their chaos. Your self-respect confronts their self-abandonment. And this can make people uncomfortable, not because you've done something wrong, but because who you've become forces them to face what they've ignored in themselves. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But most people don't look inward. They project outward. And so begins the silent war. This war doesn't look like open conflict. It shows up as passive aggression, unexpected distance, sudden coldness, or even outright dislike. Friends who once praised you begin to question your choices. People who once relied on you now accuse you of changing. But the truth is, you didn't change to hurt them. You changed to heal yourself. And your healing became a mirror. They saw in you the version of themselves they never gave permission to emerge. That can feel threatening to someone who's still clinging to old identities. Take the story of Maya, for example. After years of burnout from always putting others first, she finally chose herself. She started waking up early, meditating, setting boundaries, and prioritizing her peace. At first, her life blossomed, but soon her coworkers began gossiping. Her sister told her she was too distant. Her boyfriend said she was acting too spiritual. What was really happening? Maya had stepped into alignment, and that alignment disrupted the emotional contracts people had with her. They didn't miss the old Maya. They missed the version of her who tolerated their chaos. This is the hidden price of transformation. As you grow, you'll stop fitting into the roles others assigned you. And some will resent you, not because you betrayed them, but because you stopped betraying yourself. They will say, "You've changed." They're right. But what they won't admit is that they expected you to stay broken, just so they could stay comfortable. Carl Jung taught that growth begins when we confront the shadow. And your very existence, once you've done that inner work, becomes a living invitation for others to do the same or reject it. It's not your job to carry their discomfort. It's not your task to make others feel safe with your transformation. Your only responsibility is to honor the truth you fought to remember. When someone's affection requires your silence, it's not love, it's possession. When your boundaries offend, it means they were never respected to begin with. Stay grounded. Stay clear. The ones who are meant for you will not be shaken by your wholeness. They'll be strengthened by it. And the ones who walk away are only showing you they were never ready to walk beside you in the first place. If this helped you understand the shadow self more deeply, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep uncovering the hidden parts of ourselves together. 4. Individuation threatens the illusion. Individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are beyond roles, expectations, and old identities. But the moment you begin to grow into that version of yourself, you quietly start threatening the illusion others have relied on. People become attached to who you were when it served their comfort. When you were agreeable, submissive, easy to control, or constantly available, they felt secure. Now that you've begun honoring your own path, something shifts in them, subtle at first, but undeniable. They may grow cold, distant, or critical. They may no longer laugh at your jokes or support your decisions. And it's not because you've changed for the worse, but because your authenticity disrupts their fantasy. They don't actually hate you. What they hate is what you represent. You are living proof that transformation is possible. You're the evidence that freedom, healing, and spiritual awakening are real, and that threatens the parts of them still living in denial. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your light casts shadows on everything they've tried to avoid confronting within themselves. In this sense, their resentment becomes a silent war, a war they wage not because of who you are, but because of who they are not ready to become. This is why spiritual wisdom matters so deeply during these transitions. Without it, you might internalize their disapproval and question your own progress. But with it, you begin to understand the deeper truth. When people project their discomfort onto you, it's rarely personal. It's emotional displacement. You've stopped playing the role they wrote for you, and now they must face the emptiness they once filled with your compliance. That's not cruelty. That's courage. That's reclaiming your energy and saying, "This is who I am, even if it costs me your approval." In everyday life, this can look like a woman choosing peace over people-pleasing and suddenly being called cold. It can look like a man breaking generational trauma cycles and being seen as arrogant by family. It can look like saying no to emotional labor and being painted as selfish. But all of it is the cost of awakening. As Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And when your evolution forces them to feel what they've long suppressed, they may turn against you, not because you're wrong, but because you're free. The silent war begins when your boundaries disrupt their control, when your confidence exposes their insecurity, when your truth dismantles the lie they built around your existence. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be whole. And the moment you embrace that, some relationships will dissolve, but only the ones built on illusion. You'll find that what remains is real, soul-nourishing, and aligned with your highest path. So let them misunderstand you. Let them distance themselves. Let them speak behind your back. That is not your burden to carry. Your only responsibility is to stay rooted in truth, to keep rising, and to protect the flame of your spiritual awakening from those who fear its fire. Do you feel the call to be your true self, even when it makes others uncomfortable? If so, affirm it with courage in the comments. I choose authenticity, no matter who it unsettles. 5. You threaten the collective unconscious. Carl Jung believed that beneath all human behavior lies a shared psychic blueprint, the collective unconscious, invisible network that connects us all and preserves patterns of thought, tradition, and behavior. This unconscious field favors sameness because sameness feels safe. So when someone breaks away, not just mentally, but energetically, it feels like a disturbance in the system. This is why, when you begin your healing, when you grow, when you awaken spiritually and reject the roles that once defined you, others don't always celebrate your evolution. Instead, something colder happens. They resist you. You're not just confronting your own past, you're challenging the emotional contracts others have made without knowing. When you break cycles of family trauma, when you decide not to follow society's assigned script, when you stop apologizing for being yourself, the system doesn't applaud you. It defends itself, not consciously, but automatically. People may begin to avoid you, belittle you, or question your motives, not because you've done something wrong, but because your growth threatens their comfort. You're no longer mirroring their unconscious patterns. You're breaking the mirror. It can feel deeply personal, but it's not. These reactions are part of a larger emotional reflex. You've become the trigger that reveals what others don't want to see within themselves. Like a living symbol of freedom, you disrupt the status quo they unconsciously depend on to feel stable. This is the moment when the spiritual awakening becomes less about peace and more about endurance. It's not just about connecting with the light, it's about surviving the shadow it exposes in others. People don't hate you because you've changed. They react because your change exposes their stagnation. And instead of facing that inner discomfort, they project it outward onto you. That's why they pull away. That's why they gossip. That's why they try to silence you with subtle disdain or passive disapproval. Because your new path disrupts their illusion of control. It's the silent war no one prepares you for. You're not being attacked by individuals. You're being rejected by a system trying to protect itself. Every time you choose authenticity over compliance, vulnerability over silence, healing over repression, you shake the foundations of that unconscious structure. And the closer you get to your truth, the more those still trapped in illusion feel uneasy. You're not a threat. You're a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable when they haven't looked at themselves in a long time. But even in the isolation, there is power. Because every spiritual awakening requires this crossing from the familiar to the unknown, from the approval of others to the alignment with your soul. As Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that privilege often costs the comfort of fitting in. Comment below. I break the cycle. I awaken the truth. If you're ready to rise above the collective patterns and live in alignment with your authentic self. 6. Outgrowing your persona feels like death to others. Outgrowing your persona doesn't just disrupt your inner world, it unsettles everyone who benefited from your disguise. According to Carl Jung, the persona is not who we truly are, but a mask worn to meet society's expectations. And when you finally decide to remove that mask, to no longer bend, shrink, or silence yourself just to fit in, people feel betrayed, not because you've wronged them, but because you've interrupted their illusion of who you were supposed to be. They don't mourn your growth. They mourn their control over you. This is the silent grief people carry when you stop playing small for their comfort. You might have been the one who never said no, who kept the peace, who always smiled through the discomfort. But the moment you start honoring your needs, drawing lines, and standing firm, it feels like rebellion to those who mistook your compliance for identity. They say you've changed, but what they mean is you've stopped being easy to manage. And that realization threatens the roles and dynamics they depended on. The shift from your masked self to your real self is not just your liberation, it's their loss of power. And often, they respond not with understanding, but with resistance. Cold shoulders, dismissive remarks, unspoken resentment. A woman who always absorbed everyone's burdens without complaint suddenly decides to focus on her own healing. A man who never challenged the status quo begins to speak uncomfortable truths. A friend who once abandoned their own needs to be available for everyone steps back to reclaim time for solitude. These acts of self-honoring are often met not with celebration, but with quiet punishment, because your transformation reflects back to others their own avoidance, their own stagnation, their own masks. Carl Jung understood that individuation, the path to becoming whole, requires confrontation, not just with yourself, but with those who preferred the performance. When you walk this path, you begin to see who truly loves you and who merely loved the version of you that served their needs. Some people don't hate your growth. They hate what your growth reminds them of, the freedom they have not yet chosen. They haven't grieved their own lost self. So when you resurrect yours, they feel abandoned, left behind. But the death of your persona is not the death of your relationships. It's the death of pretense. And what remains afterward, though fewer in number, is rooted in truth. The pain of letting go is real, but so is the power that rises in its place. You begin to see clearly. You begin to breathe deeper. You begin to walk in rooms without shrinking, to speak without seeking permission, to live without performing. And though others may resist this version of you, your soul recognizes it as home. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And this privilege isn't always met with applause. It's often met with silence, projection, or even hostility. But the path of truth was never meant to be crowded. It was meant to be real. And when you stop living for acceptance and start living in alignment, you become untouchable, not because you are cold, but because you are whole. If you're ready to live beyond the mask and embrace your true self, don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on reclaiming your power and identity. 7. Wholeness reveals their fragmentation. When you begin to embody both strength and softness, when you no longer feel the need to choose between being powerful or tender, you disrupt a pattern that most people around you are still unconsciously trapped in. You become living proof that the masculine and feminine can coexist within one soul in harmony. Carl Jung taught that the path to individuation, the true spiritual awakening, is achieved through integration of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine aspects within each of us. And when you do that, when you stop hiding or overcompensating and simply become whole, something begins to shift. But it's not always welcomed. In fact, it can silently provoke those around you. Not because of what you're doing to them, but because of what you reflect back to them. They see your wholeness, and it feels like a mirror exposing their inner divide. They see the traits you have learned to embrace, the vulnerability, the intuition, the emotional honesty, and it reminds them of the parts they had to bury long ago to survive. If they were raised to suppress their emotions, your sensitivity seems weak to them. If they were taught to dominate rather than nurture, your balance between assertiveness and compassion seems confusing, even threatening. So they react, often unconsciously. They criticize, withdraw, or turn cold. It feels personal. It hurts. But it's not about you. It's about the war inside them. People tend to attack what they were taught to reject within themselves. If someone has silenced their tenderness to fit in, seeing you be freely soft makes them uncomfortable. If they've had to kill their own dreams just to be accepted, your authenticity will seem arrogant to them. So they hate it. Not because you've wronged them, but because you've awakened something within them that they were trying hard to forget. The hate is a shield, a defense mechanism against their own awakening. And yet, this is spiritual wisdom in action. Your presence, your integration, is medicine. But medicine doesn't always taste sweet. Sometimes it burns before it heals. Sometimes your growth feels like rejection to others because it highlights the places they've refused to grow. They don't hate you. They hate the discomfort that comes when truth brushes against their denial. The more whole you become, the more likely you are to outgrow the roles people cast you in. You no longer play the victim, the pleaser, the one who stays small to make others comfortable. And as you drop those masks, people who benefited from your fragmentation may no longer recognize you. That's the real reason behind the silent war. Not because you've changed for the worse, but because you've stopped performing. You've stopped breaking yourself into pieces just to be digestible. They won't always say it out loud, but they feel it. You've become a mirror, and not everyone is ready to see what you reflect. But your task is not to shrink back or apologize for your healing. Your task is to keep integrating, keep walking the path of inner truth. Because the more you live from that place of spiritual alignment, the more you call others toward their own wholeness, even if their first reaction is resistance. Wholeness doesn't always attract applause. Sometimes it attracts fear, projection, even hate. But in truth, it's the clearest sign that you've stepped into your power and you're no longer afraid to be fully seen. Did this resonate with you? If so, comment wholeness below. Let's keep exploring the power of balance and self-integration together. 8. The transcendent function makes you dangerous. True spiritual awakening begins when you learn to sit in the tension between two opposing truths. You no longer choose either extreme, not just love without boundaries or boundaries without love, but both held together in conscious balance. You begin to embody empathy without self-abandonment and detachment without indifference. This ability to hold contradictions without collapsing into reaction is what Carl Jung called the transcendent function, a rare psychological maturity that dissolves inner conflict by integrating both sides of the psyche. The moment you start practicing this inner integration, you become unpredictable. People can no longer anticipate your reactions because you're no longer reacting from old emotional wounds or habitual roles. You're responding from presence, from clarity, from your inner authority, and that unsettles those who benefited from your predictability. They don't consciously realize it, but your spiritual evolution threatens their emotional structure. They feel unsafe, not because you've done harm, but because they can no longer manipulate your guilt, your compliance, or your silence. Your calm makes them nervous. Your detachment feels like rejection. Your boundaries, once absent, now feel like punishment to those who were used to taking from you without limit. When you break unconscious patterns, it reflects the inertia in others. They may begin to pull away. They may criticize, gossip, or even attack your character, not because you've changed for the worse, but because you've awakened to your worth. And worth, when truly embodied, offends those who survive by staying small. Spiritual awakening is not gentle. It dismantles illusions. It asks you to let go of the version of yourself that made everyone else feel safe at your expense. The transcendent function doesn't just shift how you feel, it shifts how others experience you. And sometimes, that shift is enough to trigger the silent war. It's not loud, it's not obvious, but it's real. You begin to notice that people act colder. Invitations stop coming. The energy around you changes. And deep down, you know it's because something in you stopped being available for their comfort. What makes you dangerous is that you're no longer emotionally available for manipulation. You don't explain yourself endlessly. You don't prove your goodness through overgiving. You don't shrink just to maintain peace. You found another way, the middle path between extremes. And those who have not done that inner work will struggle to understand you. They'll call you distant, aloof, selfish. But what they really mean is, you're no longer who I need you to be, so I can avoid myself. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But once you activate the transcendent function, you break this cycle. You reclaim your inner space. And while others may perceive it as arrogance, it is simply alignment. You're no longer acting from pain. You're living from awareness. And that will always be misunderstood by those still living in reaction. Let them misunderstand you. The cost of awakening is often exile from the familiar, but what you gain in return is clarity, power, and peace. Not everyone will celebrate your healing, but your soul will. And that's the only approval that ever truly mattered. Leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss insights like this. Comment below. I embrace my transcendent power. If you're ready to break free from old patterns and step into your higher self. 9. Becoming authentic comes at a price. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what no one tells you is that this privilege often comes with the painful cost of losing people who only loved your mask. When you begin to honor your truth, you're not just shifting your path, you're unsettling everyone who found comfort in your old version. It's not your growth they hate, it's the way your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. People don't always despise transformation. They despise the mirror it holds up to their own stillness. When you stop performing and start living authentically, you're no longer predictable. You stop saying yes to please others. You set boundaries. You speak truthfully. And as strange as it sounds, that truth can make people deeply uncomfortable. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, and it is a sacred but lonely path. As you peel away the false self, what's left is raw, honest, and deeply human. And not everyone can sit with that version of you, because it asks them to sit with themselves. There was a woman who spent years being the emotional caretaker in her circle. She said yes when she meant no. She smiled through the pain. She made herself small so others could feel big. But one day, after a deep spiritual awakening, she stopped pretending. She began to say what she meant. She stopped apologizing for her needs. And suddenly, friends she'd supported for years began to pull away. One of them even said, "You've changed." But what she really meant was, "I don't know how to relate to you now that you're no longer easy to control." The truth is, you can't become who you really are and still expect everyone to come along for the ride. Some people loved you because you dimmed your light to match theirs. But when you turn that light back on, they cover their eyes, not because it hurts them, but because it reveals their own darkness. This is not betrayal. This is growth. Jung understood that the psyche resists change, but the soul demands it. When your soul begins to rise, everything that was built on fear, shame, or performance begins to fall. You might be accused of being distant, arrogant, or selfish. But those are just labels people use to describe boundaries they don't benefit from. They're reacting not to your truth, but to their own discomfort. It's important to remember that not all losses are tragedies. Some are sacred edits. Some are grace in disguise. You're not falling apart. As Carl Jung showed us, the work of becoming whole is not about pleasing others. It's about becoming aligned with your essence. When people start to withdraw from your life as you evolve, don't see it as punishment. See it as the universe refining your circle to match your vibration. You're not meant to be understood by everyone. You're meant to be real. If this message resonates with your soul, leave a comment of truth. I choose to be authentic, even if it costs me everything. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay connected to more spiritual wisdom that empowers your journey. 10. The hate you face is proof you're on the right path. The hate you face is not a sign that you've done something wrong. It's often the clearest sign that you've done something right. When you begin to walk the path of individuation, of truly becoming who you are meant to be, you become a threat, not through violence or aggression, but through presence. Your very existence becomes a mirror that reflects back to others the parts of themselves they've avoided, denied, or buried. This is not just psychology, it's spiritual wisdom. You're not just healing your mind, you're awakening your soul. And that kind of awakening doesn't just shift your life, it shifts the energy around you. Carl Jung taught that our real task is not to seek love from others, but to uncover and remove the internal barriers we've built against it. And when you begin doing that, when you begin facing your wounds, owning your truth, standing in your light, you break an unspoken contract. The contract says, stay small so others feel safe. Stay quiet so others aren't threatened. Stay broken so no one has to change. But once you outgrow that, you force people to feel things they've avoided feeling for years. Your growth becomes their discomfort. Your joy exposes their numbness. Your freedom shines light on their cages. And often, instead of doing the inner work, they project their unease onto you. That projection looks like resistance, like coldness, like mockery, or sometimes hate. You might find people you've known for years begin to withdraw. Their support becomes silence. Their warmth turns into criticism. You wonder what you did wrong. But here's the truth. You didn't betray them. You just stopped betraying yourself. And when that happens, people will either rise with you or fall away from you. The hate you receive is not always personal. It's energetic. It's symbolic. It's what happens when your light shines too brightly in places where shadows have been comfortable for too long. Take, for example, the woman who chooses to leave a job that was draining her spirit. She starts her own business, follows her passion, radiates self-belief. But as she rises, people begin whispering, mocking, calling her too much. What's really happening? Her courage makes them uncomfortable. Her transformation stirs something in them they haven't dealt with. Her success reminds them of the dreams they gave up on. So rather than looking inward, they lash outward. And this is how spiritual awakening becomes spiritual warfare, not through weapons or noise, but through silence, distance, judgment, and projection. You become a living contradiction to the illusions people cling to. You become the reminder they didn't ask for. And that's where the silent war begins, not because you wanted it, but because your very healing unsettles what they've chosen to remain asleep to. The more you embody your authenticity, the more those who haven't yet found theirs will feel challenged just by being near you. And in that moment, you must decide, will you dim your light to keep others comfortable, or will you continue becoming? This is the cost of transformation. This is the quiet tax of awakening. But this is also how you know you're evolving. The resistance, the hate, The cold shoulders, they're not rejection. They're proof. Proof that you're shedding what no longer serves you. Proof that your soul is stepping forward, even when your past tries to hold on. The war is not really with others. It's with your old self begging you to turn back. But you won't. Because once you've tasted the truth, there's no going back to pretending. Sometimes, the shift in how people treat you has nothing to do with who you are, and everything to do with the silent war your light triggers in their unresolved pain. As Carl Jung taught, unconscious projections shape how people react to what they don't understand or can't control. Remember, your growth will often challenge others. Don't dim your light to make them comfortable. If this message resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs this wisdom, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful insight from our future videos. Your journey matters, and we're walking it with you. Why the universe sends you someone you can't be with. Some people are meant to awaken your soul, not walk beside you forever. This truth echoes deeply through the teachings of Carl Jung, who believed that every soul we meet, especially the ones we can't have, is part of a greater plan for our transformation. In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we explore why the universe sends you someone you can't be with, and how this painful experience is often the key to profound personal growth. Have you ever met someone who changed you forever, even though they couldn't stay? Share your story in the comments, and let's explore together how these soul-shaking encounters guide us closer to who we were always meant to become. 1. Some soul connections are not meant to last, but to awaken you. You meet someone who feels like they were made from the same breath as you. Someone who touches parts of your soul you didn't even know were asleep. The connection is undeniable. The recognition is instant. But life makes it clear. You cannot be together. It hurts in a way that feels almost divine. This is not just heartbreak. It's a soul-level awakening, a sacred disruption sent not to complete your story, but to start a new one within you. Carl Jung, the brilliant psychologist who mapped the human soul, believed that people don't enter our lives by chance. The ones who stir our emotions the most are often the ones carrying messages from our unconscious. What looks like a failed relationship may actually be a key meant not to open a door between you and them, but a door inside yourself. That person is a mirror, revealing your shadows, your wounds, your desires, and your deepest truths. In modern life, this often shows up as a soul connection that defies logic. You might meet them during a season of transition, at a time when you're not looking, not expecting. And yet, the way they look at you makes you remember yourself. But they may already belong to another world, another path, another timeline. The impossibility of union forces you to turn inward, to sit with the ache, to find out what this longing is really pointing toward. It's not about chasing them. It's about chasing your own wholeness. This happened to a woman named Eliza, who met a man during a creative retreat. They shared poetry, silence, and stories that felt like past lives. But he was engaged. And Eliza, though shattered, chose not to pursue what wasn't meant to be. Instead, she allowed the connection to reveal the parts of herself she had abandoned: her creativity, her fire, her freedom. He had shown her what she was missing, not in love, but in life. And through that pain, she began the process Carl Jung called individuation, the sacred journey of becoming whole. These soul encounters are not mistakes. They are designed by a greater intelligence that wants your evolution more than your comfort. They pull you apart so that you can be rebuilt with more truth, more courage, more love, not toward the other, but toward yourself. What you felt was real, but its purpose may have never been about romance. It was about spiritual wisdom. It was about waking up. And so, you learn to bless the connection, even in its absence. You stop asking why it couldn't last, and instead start asking what it came to teach. You realize that some people arrive not to walk with you, but to ignite you. Not to stay, but to awaken. Not to complete you, but to return you to yourself. And in that return, you become something even greater than a lover. You become whole. Have you ever met someone who awakened your soul, but wasn't meant to stay? If so, share your story in the comments to help others heal. If not, comment, "I'm open to soul lessons," to affirm your readiness for growth. 2. Their presence is meant to transform you, not complete you. According to Carl Jung, some people are not sent into our lives to stay. They are sent to awaken us. Their presence acts like a mirror, reflecting back parts of ourselves we've buried or ignored. The dreams we silenced, the desires we feared, the pieces of our soul waiting to be expressed. They don't come to complete us. They come to disrupt us, to shake the dust off our spirit and force us to see who we truly are beneath the surface of routine and fear. These connections feel electric, undeniable, and sacred. When we meet someone like this, it's as if our soul recognizes them before our mind does. We feel seen in a way that no one else has ever seen us, and we begin to remember the parts of ourselves that have long been asleep. And yet, despite this depth, we can't hold on to them. Life, timing, circumstances, whatever the reason, we are not meant to keep them. But that doesn't make their presence any less meaningful. In fact, that temporary encounter might be more transformative than any lifelong relationship. They awaken what Jung called archetypes, universal symbols embedded in the unconscious. Through these soul connections, we meet our inner masculine or feminine energies, known as the animus and anima. These energies help us mature emotionally and spiritually, but the process is rarely smooth. It's not just love, it's a collision with our shadow, our projections, and our longing for something beyond the physical. That's why these relationships often feel spiritual, karmic, or even destined. But destiny doesn't always mean forever. Sometimes it means for a purpose. And when that purpose is fulfilled, the separation feels like a death. But spiritual wisdom reminds us that what hurts is not the person's absence. It's what they stirred in us that we now must learn to hold on our own. The love they reflected still lives within us. The light they ignited is now ours to carry. If we follow that light, we begin the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole, not through another, but through deep self-realization. This is not just philosophy, it's something many live through. Like the woman who met a man abroad, felt a love so raw, it awakened her artistry, her voice, her purpose, only to return home without him. But something in her was forever changed. She didn't need him to stay. His presence had already done what it came to do: unlock her soul. So when the universe sends you someone you can't be with, it's not a mistake. It's a sacred invitation to go deeper. You are not being denied love. You are being shown where to find it within. That's the real gift. That's the reason they came. If this message spoke to your soul, leave a like, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss more insights like this. Remember, the people who shake your heart are meant to awaken your highest self. Type in the comments, "I am ready to grow into my fullest potential." 3. This connection is a spiritual projection of your own unlived self. When you meet someone you can't be with, yet feel a soul-deep connection, it's not just about that person. It's about what they awaken within you. Carl Jung's concept of projection reveals that the powerful emotions you feel toward them are often reflections of parts of yourself you haven't fully lived out. You're not simply falling for them. You're recognizing your own spiritual potential shining back at you through their presence. The universe uses this connection like a mirror, showing you the version of yourself that is waiting to be realized. That longing, that ache, is the voice of your soul calling you home. This is not a mistake or misalignment. It's a divine disruption, a sacred encounter designed to initiate your spiritual awakening. What seems like an impossible love is really a revelation of your unlived life. The person becomes a symbol of your creativity, your confidence, your hidden strength, your deepest desires. You're not chasing them. You're chasing the wholeness that they reflect. That's why walking away feels so unbearable. It's like turning from the future version of yourself that your spirit already knows you can become. In this type of connection, pain is not punishment, it's transformation. The universe did not send them so you could possess them. It sent them so you could become you. Their presence sparks awareness. Their absence forces growth. You are meant to expand, not cling. The heartbreak is not a dead end, it's a doorway. It's the crack where your old identity begins to fall apart and your higher self begins to emerge. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This moment is your chance to reclaim authorship over your life by confronting what this person truly represents. The relationship you can't have often teaches you more than the ones you do. It confronts you with all that's unexpressed inside you. It invites you to feel deeper, to see clearer, to live more fully. It stirs your spirit, not to break you, but to awaken you. And that awakening doesn't end when they leave, it begins. You become the love you were trying to receive. You embody the light you once saw in their eyes. And you realize the real journey was never toward them, it was always toward yourself. This is spiritual wisdom in action. The universe is not cruel. It's precise. It sends the people who will shatter your illusions and stir your soul, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you in truth. In losing them, you find you. In letting go, you rise. Do you feel this truth in your soul? If you do, declare it in the comments. I see my highest self in this reflection. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more deep spiritual wisdom like this. 4. They awaken your inner longing for wholeness and authenticity. You may think you love them, but what you're really experiencing is your soul's deep cry for authenticity, aliveness, and inner wholeness. The ache they awaken in you isn't about them. It's about what they represent within you. According to Carl Jung, what we often call love at first sight or destiny is frequently a powerful projection of our unconscious longing onto another person. These people aren't just romantic interests. They are symbolic messengers. They trigger the dormant parts of our psyche and stir what we have yet to meet within ourselves. They reflect the pieces of our soul that are waiting to be embraced: our creativity, emotional depth, courage, or forgotten dreams. The universe doesn't send these people to complete us, but to disrupt us in a sacred way. That disruption is a divine invitation to wake up. The intensity you feel isn't punishment. It's a mirror, showing you what's missing inside. When you ache for someone who is unavailable, you're really aching to reclaim a part of yourself. Carl Jung's theory of individuation teaches that we must integrate all aspects of ourselves, both light and shadow, in order to become whole. And often, it takes a soul-stirring connection to ignite that transformation. Maybe you've experienced this, meeting someone who lights up your entire being, yet for some reason, you can't be together. They might live in another country, belong to someone else, or carry emotional walls too high to climb. And yet, you feel bonded to them in a way that defies logic. That pull, that longing, that inability to let go, it's not simply romantic fantasy. It's a spiritual awakening. It's the self calling you to go inward, not chase outward. As Jung would say, what you resist persists. And what you chase outside yourself, you're often trying to retrieve from within. In today's world, many people are trapped in this emotional paradox, loving someone they cannot have, believing the story ends in heartbreak. But in truth, it begins there. Because that heartbreak cracks you open. It forces you to confront illusions and break patterns. It teaches you to see clearly where you've been blind, especially to your own needs, wounds, and forgotten power. The person you can't be with becomes the catalyst for the person you're meant to become. That's why Jungian psychology is so powerful. It doesn't just ask who you love. It asks what within you is being called forth by that love. When someone awakens a longing that burns but doesn't resolve, don't dismiss it. Feel it. Follow it not toward them, but toward yourself. That longing is a spiritual signal. It means you're ready to evolve. So no, the universe isn't cruel. It's precise. It sends these people into your path not to stay, but to awaken, to shift you from sleep to consciousness, from projection to presence, from fantasy to freedom. Through them, you begin the sacred work of meeting yourself. And that, Carl Jung would say, is the most profound relationship you will ever have. Are you ready to answer the call of your soul? If this message resonates with you, type "I choose authenticity" in the comments to begin your journey toward inner wholeness. 5. Their role is to catalyze your individuation, soul growth. Jung believed that the people we cannot be with are not random accidents of fate, but carefully orchestrated encounters meant to awaken something dormant within us. When someone enters your life and ignites a fire so intense that it feels like your soul remembers them, yet you're unable to be with them, it's not about love in the traditional sense. It's a call to awaken. These people are not here to complete you, but to confront you with yourself. Their presence stirs deep emotions and forgotten dreams, not to fulfill them, but to show you what lies buried in the layers of your unconscious. The universe uses them as mirrors, reflecting your hidden fears, your unhealed wounds, your deepest longings. Through this mirror, you begin the process of individuation. For Jung, individuation is the sacred path of becoming whole, of integrating all aspects of the self, both light and shadow. And often, it begins with heartbreak. When someone you can't have awakens your inner world, they are not the destination. They are the doorway. You may obsess over why it can't work, but the real question is, what are they showing you about yourself? This is where true spiritual wisdom begins, not in getting the person, but in understanding the message. It might be your fear of being abandoned, your childhood longing to be chosen, or your unresolved need for validation. It might be a reflection of the parts of you you've disowned: the creative spirit, the wild heart, the intuitive soul. You project these qualities onto them because your unconscious is trying to make you see that they were always yours to reclaim. Jung called this projection, and it is not a flaw, it is a portal. The one you cannot be with holds up a mirror, asking you to see yourself, not as fragmented or broken, but as someone waiting to remember their own light. These painful connections are initiations. They push you into the fire of transformation, burning away illusions so that only truth remains. And that truth is this: no one outside of you holds the key to your wholeness. The person you long for is simply the spark. The real flame is within you. Once you shift your gaze inward, you begin to evolve. You no longer chase the person you listen to the lesson. You no longer grieve what wasn't you, honor what it awakened. That is where healing begins. That is where power returns. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that not all love stories are meant to unfold in the world. Some are written solely for your inner world to teach you, to break you open, to remind you of who you are beneath the yearning. And while the loss may ache, the soul gains clarity. You begin to trust the universe not for what it gives, but for what it reveals. You start to see that these impossible connections are sacred contracts. Their purpose is not possession, but transformation. They enter your life not to stay, but to change its course forever. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on how powerful connections can awaken your soul and guide you toward true individuation. 6. The real relationship is with your own becoming. You don't need to possess this person. The real purpose of their presence in your life is not to fulfill a romantic fantasy, but to awaken a deeper truth within you. The traits that drew you to them, their depth, passion, confidence, or gentle presence are not qualities you lack, but reflections of your own soul, calling you to evolve. The universe placed them on your path, not so you could hold on to them, but so you could recognize parts of yourself you have yet to fully embrace. When you long for someone you can't be with, it's not just about them, it's about you. It's about your growth, your becoming. Carl Jung reminds us that every experience, especially the ones that stir our deepest emotions, comes from the unconscious trying to make itself known. The pain of separation isn't there to punish you. It's a sacred wound that opens the doorway to your own spiritual awakening. The connection may feel like destiny, and in many ways, it is. But destiny doesn't always mean possession. Sometimes, destiny is about transformation. Think about this. You were drawn to that person because your soul recognized something familiar, something beautiful. And while it may seem like they completed you, the truth is they awakened what's been asleep within you. What you admire in them is a reflection of your own essence, still waiting to be expressed. They were never meant to stay. They were meant to activate your next level, to shake your spirit awake and remind you of what you're here to become. Every soul encounter has meaning, but not every soul is meant to stay. Jung taught that relationships are mirrors, revealing the unintegrated parts of ourselves. That's why some people enter our lives like fire, igniting emotions we didn't even know we had. It's not about romance in the traditional sense. It's about soul work. Their presence is a lesson. Their absence is the test. Instead of mourning the absence, Rise into the presence of who you are becoming. Let the ache carve space for wisdom. Let the longing lead you home to yourself. The real relationship, the one the universe wanted you to see, is not between you and them. It's between you and your own evolution. You are being called to embody the same light you saw in them, to stop seeking outside what you were always meant to awaken within. This is the heart of spiritual awakening. It's a path where pain becomes purpose and longing becomes the catalyst for self-realization. You don't need to chase love to be worthy. You just need to recognize that love showed up to awaken you, not to complete you. And when you finally become everything you once sought in another, you'll understand the divine design. You weren't meant to have them. You were meant to remember yourself. If this message touched something deep within you, comment below. I embrace the journey of becoming my highest self. And if you're ready to keep growing with us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more soul-expanding insights. 7. Your task now is to live the awakening they triggered. They were never meant to stay forever. They were meant to awaken you. The love you felt, the pain you carry, the questions you still replay in your mind, all of it was part of a deeper initiation. Their role in your life was never about the relationship lasting. It was about what it awakened within you. They were the mirror that reflected your capacity for depth, devotion, vulnerability, and truth. That's why it hurt so much, because it was real. But now, their job is done, and the question is no longer why they left, but what you will do with what they left behind. Carl Jung believed that our relationships are symbolic. We don't just meet people. We meet reflections of ourselves, projections of our inner world, messengers of the unconscious. When someone awakens us but cannot stay, it's not a punishment. It's the soul's way of pulling you into alignment. Jung wrote, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." That person you couldn't be with was a disguise of your own destiny calling. They awakened you to a version of yourself that was buried beneath old wounds, outdated beliefs, or unworthy patterns. They showed you who you were always meant to become. Maybe you've noticed it already, how your thoughts have changed, how you no longer tolerate what you once accepted, how your dreams have become louder and your soul more restless. That's the sign of a spiritual awakening. The universe didn't just send you love, it sent you a transformation. And now, it's your responsibility to honor that transformation. Don't cling to what could have been. Instead, focus on what was revealed through them. Your own power, your own clarity, your own emotional depth. Think of a woman who met someone during a time when she was lost. Their love awakened her to beauty, to art, to truth. But it didn't last. He moved on. But she didn't collapse. She painted again. She wrote again. She healed. And in doing so, she became who she truly was because of him, not for him. That's what the universe wants from you. To use the love that broke you open to step into the life you were born to live. This is not the end. It's the threshold. You weren't meant to get everything you wanted from them. You were meant to become everything you were afraid to be. Their job was never to complete your story. Their job was to ignite it. Now, it's your turn to write the rest. To affirm your dedication to the path of awakening, declare it with intention. Comment below. I honor my transformation, to acknowledge your growth and inspire others to rise into their highest selves. Sometimes, the ones we can't be with are the very ones who awaken our deepest truths, not to complete us, but to reveal us to ourselves. The universe isn't punishing you, it's preparing you. If this message has resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming insights into the soul's journey. Thank you for watching, and remember, every connection has a higher purpose.